Lena Hart was the kind of mother others envied. At least, that was how it seemed. Every Saturday morning, she could be found baking chocolate chip cookies for the PTA meeting, her kitchen filled with the sweet aroma of butter and sugar. She volunteered tirelessly at her children's school, organizing fundraisers, decorating classrooms, and ensuring every event ran smoothly. To the outside world, Lena Hart was not just a good mother, she was the epitome of perfection. Her house on Maple Street was always immaculate. The white picket fence surrounding the yard was freshly painted, the grass trimmed to perfection, and the flower beds bursting with color. Inside, everything had its place. Shoes were neatly lined up by the door, toys were stored away in labeled bins, and even the fridge magnets were arranged in perfect symmetry. Visitors often remarked on how serene and inviting her home felt, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. To their picturesque suburban town, Lena Hart represented stability, warmth, and love. But behind those closed doors lay a darkness no one could have predicted. Lena had 2 children, Olivia and Max, aged 12 and 9. On the surface, they appeared to be happy, well-adjusted kids who thrived under their mother's care. They excelled academically, participated in sports, and were polite to everyone they met. However, beneath this veneer of success, there existed a suffocating environment where freedom was non-existent. From an early age, Lena instilled in them the importance of obedience. It wasn't enough to follow rules, they had to anticipate her expectations before she voiced them. If Max left his bike outside without chaining it properly, he would find it locked in the garage for days. When Olivia failed to finish her homework early enough to help set the dinner table, she was sent to her room until bedtime. These punishments weren't physical, they were far more insidious. Isolation, fear, and manipulation became Lena's tools of control. At first, these methods might have been dismissed as strict parenting. After all, many parents enforce discipline to teach responsibility. But as the years passed, Lena's obsession with order and compliance escalated into something darker. She began monitoring their every move, questioning their friendships, and scrutinizing their grades. Any deviation from her standards resulted in harsh reprimands or prolonged periods of silence, a form of emotional punishment that left both children feeling small and insignificant. Her love, once nurturing, transformed into something possessive. "You're mine," she would tell them, her voice soft yet firm. "Always remember that." While her words sounded like declarations of devotion, they carried an undertone of warning. Over time, Olivia and Max learned to walk on eggshells around her, fearing what might happen if they crossed her invisible boundaries. Lena's marriage to Daniel had been strained for years. He was a mild-mannered man, often preoccupied with work and business trips. Though he loved his family deeply, he struggled to assert himself against Lena's domineering personality. As the cracks in their relationship widened, Daniel grew increasingly distant, leaving Lena to manage the household alone. When Daniel finally realized the extent of Lena's psychological grip over the children, he decided to take action. Filing for divorce was a difficult decision, but he believed it was necessary to protect Olivia and Max from further harm. For the first time in her life, Lena felt powerless. The thought of losing control over her children consumed her. She couldn't fathom a future where they belonged to someone else, even if that someone was their father. As tensions between Lena and Daniel reached a breaking point, the atmosphere in the Hart household grew toxic. Olivia and Max sensed the shift in dynamics and began to question whether staying with their mother was truly in their best interest. They whispered about running away during late-night conversations, fueled by desperation and hope. Their plan was simple: pack a few essentials, leave a note explaining their reasons, and seek refuge with their father. Little did they know, their attempt to escape would lead to unimaginable consequences. It was a cool autumn evening when the neighbors heard the first scream. A chilling, guttural sound pierced through the quiet neighborhood, jarring residents from their routines. Curious heads peeked out of windows, wondering if someone needed help. But the noise subsided almost as quickly as it began, leaving behind an eerie silence. Inside the Hart home, chaos erupted. Lena had walked into Olivia and Max's bedroom, only to discover them hastily packing a small duffel bag. Whispering urgently, they confessed their intention to leave. Panic surged through Lena like wildfire, consuming her rationality. Her hands trembled as she grabbed hold of their wrists, her grip tightening painfully. "You don't want to leave me," she said, her voice eerily calm despite the fury bubbling beneath. "Do you know what happens to kids who run away? They disappear. They suffer." Terrified, Olivia and Max nodded, tears streaming down their faces. But Lena knew better. The seed of betrayal had already taken root, and she feared it would grow beyond her control. That night, she resolved to ensure they never left her again. The following morning, Lena walked into the police station, her face pale and drawn. Clutching a tissue in trembling hands, she sobbed uncontrollably. "They're gone," she wailed. "Someone took my babies." Her anguish seemed genuine, and the community rallied around her. Flyers were posted throughout the town, bearing photographs of Olivia and Max with hopeful messages urging anyone with information to come forward. Search parties scoured the woods and nearby neighborhoods, while news stations broadcast Lena's tearful plea for help. Yet, as investigators delved deeper into the case, unsettling details began to emerge. Lena's timeline didn't add up. According to her statement, she had last seen her children the previous night before retiring to bed. However, surveillance footage revealed her car heading toward the woods at an odd hour. Furthermore, her pristine house showed no signs of forced entry, and there were no indications that Olivia and Max had fled voluntarily. No footprints led away from the property, nor were any personal belongings missing besides the items in their hastily packed bag. Detectives started considering the unthinkable. Could Lena be involved in her own children's disappearance? The search intensified, with authorities expanding their scope to include areas near the Hart residence. Teams combed through dense forests, muddy riverbanks, and abandoned buildings, driven by the possibility that Olivia and Max might still be alive. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to dwindle. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm the community, a breakthrough occurred. A neighbor came forward, recalling seeing Lena's car parked near the edge of the woods late one evening. Surveillance cameras confirmed the sighting, placing Lena at the scene shortly after her alleged discovery of the children's disappearance. Armed with this new evidence, investigators returned to the area, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Then, buried beneath a shallow grave hidden beneath fallen leaves, they found Olivia and Max. Lena was arrested immediately, her expression unreadable as officers read her rights. In the interrogation room, detectives approached her cautiously, aware of the fragile state of mind she might be in. Initially uncooperative, Lena eventually broke down, her words spilling forth in a torrent of twisted logic. "I saved them," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They were going to leave me. The world is cruel. I kept them safe." Her confession sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened detectives. Lena had convinced herself that her actions stemmed from love rather than malice. In her warped worldview, death represented ultimate protection, a way to preserve her bond with her children forever. To her, keeping them close meant ensuring they remained hers, regardless of the cost. Psychologists later diagnosed Lena with severe attachment disorders, exacerbated by unresolved trauma from her childhood. Her inability to cope with rejection or abandonment drove her to extreme measures, blurring the line between love and possession. During the trial, disturbing revelations about Lena's past came to light. Born into poverty, she spent much of her childhood in foster care after being abandoned by her biological mother. Many placements ended prematurely due to behavioral issues, leaving her feeling unwanted and disposable. This cycle of rejection left deep scars, shaping her perception of relationships and fueling her desperate need for control. Testimonies from former caregivers described Lena as a bright but troubled child who struggled to trust others. One particularly haunting account recounted how, at the age of 10, she hoarded food in her closet, afraid that no one would feed her if she misbehaved. Another caregiver recalled her intense jealousy whenever other children received attention, leading to frequent conflicts and outbursts. These insights provided context for Lena's behavior, though they did little to mitigate the horror of her crimes. Jurors listened intently as psychologists explained how unresolved trauma can manifest in adulthood, sometimes resulting in obsessive tendencies and distorted thinking patterns. Despite understanding the root causes of her actions, society demanded justice for Olivia and Max. After a lengthy trial, Lena was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the courtroom doors closed, whispers filled the air. How could a mother do such a thing? Was she a monster, or a deeply broken woman repeating the horrors of her past? For some, the answer was clear-cut. Lena's actions defied comprehension, crossing a line that separated her from ordinary humanity. Others, however, saw shades of grey, recognizing the complex interplay of nature and nurture that shaped her tragic trajectory. Regardless of perspective, one truth remained undeniable. Lena Hart's story served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating consequences of unresolved pain. Years later, the Hart House on Maple Street remains abandoned, its once pristine facade now marred by peeling paint and overgrown weeds. Neighbors avoid the property, wary of the memories it evokes. Children dare each other to approach the front gate, whispering tales of ghostly apparitions and lingering echoes of laughter. The town still speaks of Lena Hart, though fewer people remain who remember her name. Some view her as a cautionary figure, a reminder of the fragility of mental health and the importance of seeking help. Others see her as a symbol of the dark side of motherhood, a warning that love, when misplaced, can become a prison. And somewhere in the wind, the laughter of two children lingers, a haunting memory of lives stolen too soon. A mother's love should be a sanctuary, not a prison. But in Lena Hart's case, love became possession, and possession turned into tragedy. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, seek help. There is always another way.